I recently read the David McCullum book on the Wright brothers, the best biography ever to come out about Wilbur and Orville Wright, who were the first human beings ever to fly. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that book, and I strongly recommend that you buy it. I had always supposed that the Wright brothers conquered the issue of how to fly because of the recent invention of the gasoline engine. Gasoline engines in cars had been developed 30 or 40 years before and were in more common use in 1903 when the Wright brothers flew, and I thought that it was their understanding of how to integrate that with aeronautics. But that really was not the major part. That was almost an afterthought added at the end, which they always knew they could do. The McCullum book makes the point that the way the Wright brothers learned to fly was to learn to fly, like a bird. That they essentially understood as they researched that for all of the focus on balloons and gliders and other stuff before the real airplane was invented, the people who were really the scientists who worked on planes really did not spend much time in the air. They had not been on gliders for more than 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And the Wright brothers felt that you had to thoroughly understand how a glider worked based only on the wind to understand how to fly. And they did that by studying birds. And they went out to Kitty Hawk, which is in the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and they studied birds. They studied how they soar and how they dip, how they turn, how they go down, how they land, and closely followed the wing patterns of what they do when they do each of those things, and then built an airplane, a glider, to mimic them. So that if the bird pulled the tip of his right wing in a little bit, they would have a lever to pull the wing in a little bit when they wanted to. Or if he dipped his nose a little, they would push the nose of their plane down a little to mimic the same things that the birds naturally did with their wings. And they did this through 1900, 1901, 1902, and it wasn't until 1903 that they put a motor on the plane. They realized that to make significant history, they couldn't just have a glider. It needed to be a motorized, heavier-than aircraft. But that was not the big technical breakthrough. And then on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers lifted off from Kitty Hawk and did the first manned flight, December 17th, 1903. There's a wonderful photo on the cover of the book of Wilbur Wright flying the plane about 10 or 15 feet off the ground and Orville running along beside it. And the flight lasted about 200 feet, but it was the first manned flight. And then they developed their airplane further, each year made improvements in building their own aircraft. And then in 1909, there's a wonderful photo of Wilbur flying the plane around the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. Most notable thing about the photo, no other planes in the sky. But it is an incredible book and a fascinating study. So pick it up, do yourself a favor, read it. Thanks for watching.